Good.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Look, Mark will be here in 1 minute. It's okay. Kim Willis is my name. We sort of work together, partners in crime or something like that. Not really. Yeah, Mark will be here soon. But I want to welcome you to this this webinar, this presentation, this LinkedIn Live, and it's all about how to master tough conversations. And I can tell you something. Mark McPherson is, when it comes to this topic and related topics, he is the master. He's incredible. And so before I hand it over to Mark, I'll just make a little introduction here. Just for those of you who don't know him, I know that there are plenty of people who've registered who know Mark very well and have very high regard for him. But for those of you who maybe you're here for the first time, or you don't have a great you don't have a close relationship with Mark, let me just give you a little bit of background here. He's been helping managers and staff handle tough conversations for over 40 years. Yes, quite the veteran, you might say. But more than that, more than just handling them, he fixes the problems. He does indeed. He knows what it's like to tell people what they don't want to hear. He knows the pitfalls. Better still, he'll let you know the secrets to their success. He's been helping people master tough conversations from his earliest days as a tourist guide to his days as an educator in the drug and alcohol field, to working in hospitals, to working with the police, often in management roles. Mark has formal qualifications in science, health, education, and psychology. You can see his little degree insignias there. And I think that'll probably bring it to an end. This is the short version. There is a longer version, but I think it'll just a bit of an idea about Mark and his background. It's extensive. And so let's hand it over to Mark and away with the show. On with the show.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Kim, and I hope you can hear me, because this is my first ever live event, so I hope it's working properly. If not, I guess you'll tell me. I'm going to fly through this pretty quickly, because I do have a slide later mentioning that it's not a workshop and we only have a short amount of time together. So I will talk quickly. So yes, welcome. Thank you very much for that, Kim. It's appreciated. People know who I am, I'm sure. If you want to get in contact with me, my website, email, and of course, most people are here because of LinkedIn. Now, let's just get this straight. It doesn't matter whether we're at work, home, or play. We'd like things to run smoothly. We just want people to have a good time. Yeah, sort of do their work, but if it's someone's birthday, yes, let's have a cake and let's go out to coffee and whatever. And it doesn't matter whether we're in a formal sort of office or in the warehouse or out on a site. And we just want people to have a good time, to get on. And I've always liked that picture, so that's why that's there. We just want people to have a good time. Now, here's the bad news. Unfortunately, sometimes we have to have tough conversations with people. They're at work, they're at home, and I've got this slide in here, Kim and others, because I used to work in the alcohol education field, and I still worry to this day about young people, some of the tough conversations they've got to have to say to someone, no, I will not get in the car with you because you have been drinking, or I don't want to get in the car with you because I just don't feel safe. So there's a whole pile of tough conversations that go on there. And there's another slide that I've always liked, because if you're a parent, you know that sometimes you have to have some tough conversations with those that you may well love, but nonetheless, you've got to have the conversations. So why do we have these tough conversations? Well, let's face it, sometimes it's our job. Other times it's a responsibility. You have a responsibility to say to your sister-in-law or to your grandmother or whatever it happens to be. And sometimes it's to make our life better, the tough conversation asking for a pay rise. Now, that was exciting, wasn't it? Some dogs. And sometimes it's simply to do what I call the right thing. I have 9 types of tough conversations for you, and you'll recognise each one of them. And I'm just going to quieten those dogs down because they are annoying me. There's 9 types of tough conversations, and I've just written these. This is from my point of view, so I want to make that really clear. Speaking with someone who won't listen or is rude. If you're on the front counter of a council, for example, you know all about this sort of thing, and so do other people in other organisations. People who will not listen to you. Giving bad news. This is one of the tough ones. People really don't like having to give bad news, and there's lots of different types. Asking someone over whom you have no authority to do something. Will you please take this item back? I'm unhappy with my car. You said it was going to be fixed. These are tough conversations, but asking someone for a raise, you can ask, but they might say no. Telling someone their behaviour is unacceptable. This is a key one that people falter with all the time. The number of times I hear people say, I told them, but it did not work. Well, I have some secrets for you about how to make it work. Because here's the one that you got to step up from telling someone their behaviour is unacceptable. Sometimes you have to give a penalty. Now, I'll use the word penalty rather than punishment. We could have a good talk about that for over a cup of tea sometime. We're not going to cover this today, but admitting mistakes and apologising for some people seems to be just too hard. Acknowledging, praising and complimenting seems to be way too tough for some people. My 8th one is telling someone you disagree with them. And sometimes you have to say to people, no, I see it differently. And there's tricks to saying it so you don't end up in a you said, I said situation. And saying no to someone when they've made a request, even if it's reasonable, but you are unable to do it, is tough. And I'll just go back to the alcohol one. Once again, so many young people get caught out, I think, by not being able to say no. It's not just saying no, it's then resisting the pressure then afterwards when people say, oh, come on, it's Bill's party. Come on, you've got to get into it, live it up. So this is not a workshop. We can't cover everything, and this topic can be hard work. And I say that because if you're teaching Excel spreadsheets for a day, it may not be much fun, but it's not emotionally exhausting. This topic brings up a lot of things for some people, so just be warned. I'm into giving you strategies you can use. I have a different take on things than a lot of people, and I'm going to speak quickly and cover a lot of ground. If we were running a workshop today, we'd do things called real life scenarios. I have 1,000 case studies. You don't want them. I want real life scenarios, things from your real world, and think about those as we're going through this work. I'm also into practice, and I'm into something called real life rehearsals and agent provocateur role plays, something you might do in a workshop, but we won't be doing on a live event. You need to practice and you need to get good. And I have a few tricks up my sleeve for that. What makes these things tough? Now, this is important because if you're not sure what is actually making a conversation tough, then sometimes it can be hard doing something about it. I'm not going to go through the list there, but let's just say this. Some topics are unsavoury. We do not want to have to talk to someone who you really like that they no longer have a job. Or anyone, it doesn't matter if you like them or not. No one wants to do this. Telling your aging mother that she should consider going into an aged care facility can be tough work. Something about them, and I hope you do appreciate my slides. I put a bit of time into these over the years. Sometimes it's them, and the way some people are likely to react to that tough conversation makes them tough. Sometimes it's us that makes them tough. And that last one there is bad experiences. When people have had a bad experience, boy, oh boy, that can really turn them off or make them very nervous about having one. And ramifications, let's be honest here. Sometimes when you have a tough conversation, there are ramifications and sometimes they're frightening. Oh, I won't have the conversation because everyone will hate me. Or I don't want to do that because they'll think I'm the bad person. I just want everyone to like me. Well, not good enough. The reason why they end up being tough, of course, is we care. If you don't care, then there's not a problem in the world. Just go ahead and tell your aging mother that she needs to go into a nursing home and walk out the door. Well, the thing is, we do care, and that's why they're tough. And this is why we end up like this at the end of a day sometimes. Why me? Why have I had to do this? I have been there. I know what it's like with family, work, up, down, and sideways at work. It's not pleasant, some of these things. But there is light in the tunnel. There's a lot of graffiti on that, isn't there? But there is light in the tunnel. It's not a train coming the other way, you'll be pleased to know. Now, you take the job. You take the kudos and you take the pay. And the next thing you take is rights, terrific, but you take responsibilities. And that's what this is all about, stepping up to those responsibilities. So what does it actually mean to master tough conversations? So I'm going to go through this quickly. Well, maybe you don't have to be that excited after you've had one, but the person does what you want. This is one of the secrets to mastering tough conversations, is you do not have a tough conversation because you want to shoot your mouth off. If you do, it's not a tough conversation. It's called shooting your mouth off. So I have people tell me, oh, I just wanted to tell them how I felt. Well, fine. If that's what you did, fine. And then you move on. But you want the person to do something. You want to be able to handle the conversation well. You want people to be able to say you did a reasonable job. They may not like what you've said, but you want, as a manager, you want to be able to, just for example, you want to be able to have these conversations. People say, well, I wish he didn't have to have it, but he was okay, he did it. And you need to handle the negative ramifications. Now, you'll just be pleased to know that's not one of the solutions I'm offering, but there are people around who do have an idea that if I pretend the problem isn't there, it will just magically go away. Now, let's be honest. Sometimes it does go away. With time, sometimes problems become less. My experience is in the workplace, they become bigger. I won't worry about that, but just letting you know that what we're covering today can be used in all sorts of situations. I won't worry about that today, but I'll just let you know that I'm into 3 particular things: best practice behaviour, mastering tough conversations, and dealing with difficult people. So let's get on to it. Mastering tough conversations involves 3 things. You need to take control of the conditions under which you have them. I'm shocked by the number of people who tell me the conversation didn't work, and then I ask them what preparation they did. Oh, I caught him one time when he was in the lunchroom and I had a conversation with him. Not good enough. I will leave you with some scripts. I'm into what I call personal conversation scripts, things that you can use to tailor and to fit your particular needs. And I'm after the deliveries because it's plural, just because sometimes you need to deliver these things more than once. Sometimes you need to check up on people. How is it going? Did you read the material I gave you? Have you made a decision yet? Has your work improved? I've got 5 questions you need to answer before you embark on a tough conversation, and plenty of principles. The 5 questions. Please answer these before you have a tough conversation. They will help you. You need to know what's happened and using facts and facts only. Now, people often say to me, oh yes, I used facts. I told them they were belligerent. Belligerent is not a fact. That's our interpretation. Facts are quite, as someone said, who's the CEO of a local government, a council, actually said, you want me to be a bit boring and dull? And I said, well, in some regards, yes, because the English language is quite rich and you can use all sorts of words to describe what happened. But it's what I call, it's what the camera saw. What is the problem? Some people are not clear about what is the actual problem they are trying to fix. Now, just for the case of unacceptable behaviour, it could be lots of things. Maybe they broke the rules. Maybe they broke an agreement. Yes, boss, I will have the report on your desk by 10 a.m. on Monday morning. Failed to follow a directive, violated your personal standards. Now, I'll just mention, is it okay to swear in the workplace? I'll leave that question there. It's an hour's discussion because maybe, maybe not. And if it is okay, what sorts of swear words? What do you want the person to do? You always want the person to do something. Maybe it's these things. Maybe you want the person to agree with you. It could be all sorts of things, but be very clear, because the number of times I've known people to be I'll say the victim, just for lack of a better word, of a tough conversation. And they've said, oh, I don't know, he just went on about stuff, told me I wasn't very good at things. Did he ask you to do anything? I don't know, he just told me that I was no good. So be very clear. These people walk away just thinking that you've, just shot your mouth off. Do they need help to do it? And is a tough conversation the best solution? So you'll hear this a lot now. Let's take control. You need to take control of the conditions. Where are you going to have this conversation? Who else needs to be there? Now, I worked for a union. I know what it's like to defend people. I know what it's like to be on the other side and take people right through to disciplinary action and to have them removed. Who else has to be at this conversation, if anyone? How will you control your nerves? What language will you accept? What won't you accept? Will you accept the person interrupting you? You need to know your rules and regulations, and you better take any documents you need. So, more importantly, what you want now is the scripts. So, I'm into what I call personal conversation scripts. I'm into you knowing what words come out your mouth, in what order, how long you pause, when to raise your voice, when to speak softly, and when to move in and move away from the person. I'll give you some formal scripts, but you really need to make them informal. You need to abbreviate them. You need to tailor them and personalise them. That's why it's very easy for me to run a one-day workshop on these things. So I'm into scripts. These are the outlines. These are just some one-page things I've made for some people over the years, and we'll have a look at some now. Sometimes people ask me, oh, you've got the scripts, but you've got nothing about the greeting. Well, of course, if someone comes to your office for a meeting, yes, you might want to shake their hand or whatever it happens to be. Just be polite. Speaking with someone who is difficult, I have a script for you. This script, unlike any other script, does not have to be said in this order. These are some ideas for you to use. An example for me is you're on the front counter of a council and someone is being, let's say, unpleasant, rude, demanding, or whatever it happens to be. So I'll run through these because time is running short. In a nutshell, you need to say hello, you need to give them stuff, and you need to finish. I'm shocked by the number of times people say, oh, the conversation went on much longer than it should have. Well, why? If you prepare, it won't. So you need to get people's attention. You need to use their name if you can, sometimes is great. Acknowledging people for their efforts. Thank you for turning up. Thank you. I know this has been a very frustrating period of time for you. Acknowledge their feelings and acknowledge the work they've done in their efforts. When it comes to giving, sometimes it's useful to tell people what you will and will not do. Do not get to the end of a tough conversation with someone saying, oh, I thought you'd be able to do this, if that was never on the table. Options is a great way of dealing with some of these conversations. Give people options. You can either fill out the form now, Mr. Jones, or you can take it away with you, or you can go online. Here's the website address or whatever it happens to be. Options are good. Little messages. Give people messages through this. Mr. Jones, we need to get through this in the next few minutes. Mr. Jones, I've already told you that language is not acceptable. Sometimes you need to give people information. And the one I want to talk about is cutting the blah. Too many people go on unnecessarily. You've heard it. Oh, I'm really sorry, son, that it came to this. Oh, we still love you. Look, if you conduct these conversations properly, there is no need to say that. You need to finish, and you need to make sure those agreements are right. They understand what they have to do, and you need to leave. And you know, plenty of organisations have ways of finishing conversations. Have I helped you today? Is that all that we've needed to cover? Thank you for your time. It's appreciated. I now need to serve someone else. So I'm happy to give you that script. In fact, it's at the graphic designers at the moment. So if you send me a message, I'll get it to you, but it might be another week. But knowing sometimes these things take longer. So here's a trick for you. When you are having a tough conversation with someone, and you are feeling the strain, take a break. Yes, you can take a break. And there's a way of doing it. It's along the lines of saying, I need a few minutes. I just need a glass of water. I just need to think about this. I need to speak to someone. And you go away, you go to the bathroom, you look in the mirror and say, oh, why me? Have a drink of water and you come back. Now, if you're dealing with a difficult person, what they want to ask is, oh, I hope you haven't upset you. Are you okay? You do not get involved in these conversations. You simply say, I'm ready. We were up to you choosing one of these options. I'm ready. Thank you for waiting, or whatever it happens to be, but do not get involved in conversations. Need a break? Take it. Let's have a look at this one, telling someone their behaviour is unacceptable. I have two particular scripts. One is the F.E.W.E.R script, and that's just a one-page thing I've produced for somebody. And let's have a look at it. It's facts, explain, and ask. If you've answered the 5 questions properly, you will know what the facts are. You will know when it comes to explaining what the problem is. Michael, on your timesheet this week, you wrote down 3 times you came in at 9 a.m, but I know you came in after 9:30. That's the fact. What you want to say is you cheated on your timesheet. Well, that's not good enough. You've got to explain why it's a problem. And you've also then got to ask a question. This is one way of dealing with this unacceptable behaviour. There's lots of ways it might be unsatisfactory. It could be a problem because, well, with this timesheet, which is a real example for me, I have to sign it as a true and accurate record of your attendance, and I am unable to do that. That's the problem. We will talk sometime about the word because there was research done 30 years ago about the value of the word because. Parents know it's valuable because they just use it by itself, because. Now, when it comes to asking, there's lots of things you can ask people. How can we work together to fix this problem? What can you do now to make sure you come to work on time? What can you do now to make sure that your reports are on my desk by 10 a.m. Tuesday every week, whatever it happens to be? But that ask can be very, very powerful because people often like to be involved. What can I do now to make sure that you can do this? What ideas have you got? So that's one script. And look, we've knocked that over pretty quick. It takes 45 minutes because with your real life scenarios, you need to work on this, because my experience is people often don't understand what facts really are. Now, some people will get it when you have these tough conversations. When you say, yesterday you were late to work. Don't let that stop you from having the total conversation. Do not think that someone really does get it just because they say, I get it, I understand. You don't have to tell me anymore. You usually do have to tell them. I'll move on to another script, which is like F.E.W.E.R, except I call it F.E.W.E.R. Now, once again, there's just a script that I've made up for someone. It's about facts and it's about explain. You've seen those. The next one is want. You need to tell the person what you want. I want you to produce your reports to the quality required by 10 a.m. every Tuesday from now on. Only you can decide what you want the person to do. Mum, I want you to read this material from the aged care assessment team or whatever it happens to be. Mum, I want you to think about this. I'll be back tomorrow. Only you can decide. Son, I want you from now on when you borrow the car to always return it with a full tank. Explain what the benefits are. Just sometimes why this is a benefit to the person. And here's the tough thing. There are rewards and penalties. Now, in the workplace, I don't think there's a lot of rewards. I shouldn't say that. That's not fair. I would say that the rewards in the workplace can be trickier than when you're dealing with your 10-year-old son, because there's pocket money involved and all sorts of things, like whether you get Christmas presents or not. But in the workplace, it's a bit trickier. But I did say to someone when I was working for a large government organisation, about my reward was, if you can do that for me, this conversation is forgotten about. However, if you continue to make those sorts of comments at a staff meeting about any other member of staff, next time we meet, it will be a part of a formal disciplinary process. So look, there's a script that I use for people, and it needs to be tailored and personalised, because the way I say things is not the way you say stuff. Another part of these tough conversations and dealing with unacceptable behaviour is what I call assertive instant messages. We use them all the time. They're shorthand. Don't do that. Turn the volume down. I've told you before. Now, these work incredibly well with someone who is fully understanding exactly what you're talking about. You try that when someone's pushed in at the picture theatre when you're lining up for tickets, and you say, excuse me. Now, that's an assertive instant message, and it can work very well, except for someone who says, no, I won't excuse you. I'm in front of you. Too bad. Get stuffed. So you need to be very careful about these. But there's a long discussion to be had, and some great parts of a workshop about the verbal, vocal, and visual aspects to this. What words, what vocal qualities, and what you do with your hands, face when you're saying it, and your whole body. So this is a classic assertive instant message. Sidley, stop, I don't like it. That's it. There's no explanation. It's written in the rule book. Don't cut the blah. Stop. I don't like it. That's it. Now, I'm not saying you wouldn't have to say other things. I'm not saying you don't have to do the F.E.W.E.R technique or whatever, but I've also liked this picture. I think the hand says it all. Notice that hand is not down low. It's not up in front of their face. If you have it higher, people can see you as being rude, and it will be, they'll sidetrack you. Now, when you disagree with people, sorry, that's just to me a fun photo, so I'm not suggesting you should strangle anyone, but sometimes you've got to say to someone you disagree, and just make it short and sweet. I disagree. I stopped someone recently from writing a 2-page email back to someone who had a different view of what actually happened at a staff meeting. And it's not valuable. It's not useful. You will start to have the other person pick up on your grammar and your syntax, and it's silly. I have a different view. My memory of the staff meeting is different to yours. That's not what happened at the Christmas party. I see it differently. These can be very powerful statements if you just say what has to be said and leave it there. And again, cut the blah. Time is of an essence for us. So look, I think the way to respond to criticisms and put downs, there are some great techniques, and I'll talk about those another time, because there are some very powerful techniques that you can use. I want to move on now just to say a few things about delivering. Words have power, and that's why I'm into these scripts. Too many people go into conversations where they're going to say stuff, and I don't think they've worked out exactly what words to use and in what order. When it comes to your vocal quality, people say, oh yes, you should sound good, you should sound fine, you should sound assertive. There's a lot more to it than that. It's about the character in your voice, the continuity of how you flow words and sentences together, the clarity, and what is also called colour. That's about the pitch, the pace, the pause and power. As you can see, there's a lot in this. It's worthy of a workshop. Everything you do visually has an impact. You notice these two people here are looking at something, and this is important. Eye contact is important, but sometimes I think it's been overdone, and there's a lot to know about eye contact, and believe me, every little facial expression you do, some people will pick up on. So I have 11 essential visual skills, and no, I'm not going to go through them all now, but these are all very, very important. And I want to say that every time you speak, every hand movement, every gesture should be worked out to complement what you're actually saying. So the way to master these is really know those secrets. I've just touched on, half a dozen out of 100. It's not a workshop, as I said. When you get good at this, you gain confidence. So people often say, how do you get confident? Knowing what to say, knowing how to say it, and what to do and look like when you're saying it makes you incredibly confident. I have some guiding principles, and we'll give those a bit of a miss for today. But just some of the things. People said, I went out of my way to help that person. They didn't thank me. Don't expect to be thanked when you have a tough conversation with someone. They might not hate you, but just don't expect them to thank you. So where to from here? I think it's back to you, Kim, because I did what I said I'd do, which was knock this over by 1:35 to make sure that people could ask some questions. I know how quickly I've been through this, but I hope it's been of some value to let you know that there's plenty in it. Just a quick review, the different types of tough conversations, why they're tough, those 5 questions to ask before you have and embark on tough conversations are so important. So that's over to you, Kim. At 1:35, I've done it. What do you think about that?
I think that's awesome, mate. I think that's fantastic. And you did a great job. I like the Sidley technique.
Well, it's funny you should say it, because I said that recently to some friends of mine. Their daughter was being harassed by their son. They're twins, by the way. And I actually said, did you actually tell him to stop doing it? Oh, he should know. Yes, I agree. He should know. But once you say, stop, I don't like it, then the parents can step in and say, your sister told you not to do it. You've done it. Now there's a penalty.
Now there's a penalty. I'm just wondering if anyone has any questions about the issues canvassed today. Just leave it open for a minute or 2 or 3. Yeah, it's an interesting area. I've actually been. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and from the guy that what's his name? The work week, Tim.
Oh yes, Ferriss. Yes.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss. It was him and another lady, and they're talking about all the different types of tough conversations that we can face even on a daily basis. And one of the points that they made, and I know Mark and myself have discussed this several times, is how the penalties of not having the tough conversation. Yeah. So I think maybe, Mark, is there anything you can add to that to illuminate?
Well, I tell you what, I was working with someone who's a head of a science department in the school, a great science teacher, biology teacher, then suddenly becomes head of department. They have 18 staff. One of those staff was not performing well. In fact, they lied. Yes, I have completed the reports, and then just went home on a Friday afternoon. And she debated all weekend. I guess I should talk to them. Guess? It's not a guess. The penalty of not talking to them is that you now look bad. Parents will be ringing you up. The deputy principal will now be annoyed. The penalty for you not having the conversation is you are not doing your job properly. And people will know it. And it's not a good look. It's not a good look rushing in with a tough conversation and not asking those 5 questions first. But it's not a good look sitting back and saying, oh maybe they'll magically, realise the error of their ways. Well, don't hold your breath. I know that sounds tough. The other thing I think that
you've got to be tough sometimes.
I will say one thing, that too many of the stuff I read talks about tough conversation and doesn't separate those 9 out.
Yes.
There's some great techniques for dealing with a teenage kid who's poorly behaved, but they're not the same as dealing with an adult, and they're not the same as dealing with your, got one right now. A friend of mine's brother-in-law was very rude at the Christmas party, and she does to her children, and she does not want to invite her brother-in-law back. Okay, that's tough because there are ramifications. Everyone will think she's being mean. Everyone will think she's overstepping the mark. The penalty is she doesn't feel good about herself. She's allowed her brother-in-law to be rude to her children who didn't deserve it.
Yeah.
Unspoken. And now, why am I telling you? Because she's over a drink. She's telling me. I said, don't tell me it's not a problem. She's now spending her valuable time.
It's she's been thinking about it, so clearly it is a problem. Just some comments here from Jeff Hetherington. Love the 5 structure. Pam McDonald, such practical info. Mark, it's really
that's lovely.
Andrew Kavanagh, fascinating, Mark. Thank you. Andrew also asks, your first ever live with question mark. Impressive.
Yes.
Impressive, Mark.
well, thank you for you, Kim, because I had a go at trying to work it last week as a trial run and I failed. So thank you for stepping in and giving me some help. I'll definitely have some more of these. Look, someone mentioned practical. I am tired of reading book after book, as I've got them up here about dealing with difficult people. You should have a conversation with the person if you're unhappy with their behaviour. Yeah, we know that. What I'm interested in is helping people know this is what you've got to say.
Yeah.
In this order. And after you've said it, stop. You've made your point. There's no need to go on and repeat yourself or whatever. So I want practical strategies. Here's some tips. How will I deal with that Mr. Jones across the counter? Here's an idea. Give them options. Mr. Jones, it's not my issue about the policies of the council. My issue is if you want to make that complaint, here's the ways you can do it. This, that. I want to see the boss. I want to see the manager now. That's not one of the options. The options are bang, bang, bang. I'm into practical stuff people can use. Good.
Yeah, that's right. More comments or question from Alistair Crow. Best location for these conversations?
I don't think enough people give time to this. At work, sometimes the appropriate thing is is you're a manager. Sometimes the appropriate place is the manager's office. Just be warned, most people know you're having a tough conversation with them. When you close the blinds and close the door, people know. I think you've got to choose wisely, and everything is different. With my mother, that's a real story for me, talking about my mother going into an aged care facility, sitting down with a cup of tea after she was relaxed with no interruptions was really, really important. Sometimes you have to have tough conversations on the spot. I was chairing a staff meeting when someone did this. This is true. A woman got up to speak and a bloke, a male member of staff, went like this, So that conversation, so I've just dropped that conversation has to be had then down there in front of other people. Kevin, don't do that. That's an assertive instant message. Later, I had a long talk to Kevin, but sometimes you've got to say it there and then. It's not the best place, but you need to choose these sorts of places. If you're at a dinner party and someone makes a racist comment, I don't think there's any use in ringing them up 3 days later. Sometimes you have to lean across the table and say, I have a different view about that. I find your language unacceptable. Just be careful. If you use the words, that's not talk about facts. When people say, oh, you're sexist. Oh, how was it? That's the answer that a difficult person gives. So you've got to be really careful about that language. I didn't really answer the question very well, I don't think, about where to have these things, because it just depends. You can have these things in the car. I've had some very tough conversations with people when I've been driving. You wouldn't think there's no eye contact there. Well, hopefully not if you're driving, but you've just got to pick your situations, and usually it's a place Think of the place that gives you the best chance of success. They listen, you look good, they do what you want. If that's a quiet office, fine.
Yeah, very good. Thanks for that, Mark. A few other comments. Jeff Hetherington again. Great presentation, Mark. Top information and insights and relaxed delivery.
That's very kind. That's very kind of him.
Nathan Bennett. Thank you, Mark. Great information and presentation. Sam Gambin says, thanks, Mark. Great information and very.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. That's good. And I hope people appreciate the fact that there's topics in there which you could spend an hour to. I used to get people with real life scenarios to spend 20 minutes producing their real life scenarios, so that everything we do throughout the day after that is for them. It's based on their stuff, not mine. And so we've raced through a lot of stuff today. The F.E.W.E.R technique is a good hour's work, but I want people to leave at the end of, say, a workshop with their F.E.W.E.R script written, tailored and personalised for them. Because some of these people say, I have to have this conversation tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm having it with my manager. And I need to get this right. Well, do not leave here until you do get it right. So this takes time. And then we practice it. You know, and I do agent provocateur role plays where I am the provocateur, and you better handle me. Anyway, I'll leave it there because we've almost time, I think.
Yeah,
I do want to say thank you to people who turned up. It is appreciated.
Great, Mark. Well, that was very good. How can people get in touch with you? Through LinkedIn, I guess, is the...
Well, I think most people are here because of LinkedIn. So I'm thinking that LinkedIn is the obvious thing. And please let them know that, that tomorrow when I go to the optometrist and then go to the physiotherapist for my shoulder in the afternoon, I may not get back to you immediately, but I will get back to you.
Yes. Now, also, I think it would be good to make mention of future events and, maybe podcasts and things like that. Yeah. There will be other topics that will...
Well, now that I know how they work, and now I know some of the tricky things about them, uploading slides and that sort of stuff. Yeah. Look, I think I'd like to run some more. I mean, I could run one just on those 5 questions.
Yeah.
You're thinking of speaking to your husband about his attitude to your parents, and well, you better answer these 5 questions now. So that's any of those topics could be a live event.
Yeah, perhaps even more specialist business-oriented topics for managers and leaders within organisations.
Sure, absolutely. Because what a manager wants to do when they speak to a member of staff, it's if you don't care, you just tell people, listen, your behaviour is no good. Shape up or ship out. If you don't care, fine. But we do care about not only the relationship, but we want what you really want that person to do. You want that person to shape up. So if that's what you really want, then the way in which you phrase the sentence, the conversation is very different. So there's one in itself. Getting someone. And just one example, someone came in the other day and said, why do I have this one member of staff who's great and brilliant, but can never... they say they're going to turn up at 10 o'clock to a meeting and they turn up at 10 past 10. What can I do about it? Well, I call it laying down the law, but you need to have a conversation with this person because, as you said, they're brilliant and they're a great worker, but they're slipping down on one thing. So you want to keep the good things and get rid of the bad. It's tricky.
Yeah, that's great. Cara Schultz, she said, thank you all. It was very insightful. All right, any final parting comments before we end the broadcast, Mark?
No, I really do say my first event, thank you so much for turning up. It's quite a quandary working out what to put in one of these things. And I'm aware you touch on things and I know that some people go, oh yeah, I get it. But I also know that if you're in a workshop, 20 minutes later, people say something, which means they haven't particularly got it. Thank you for allowing me to just touch on some of those bits and pieces, because there's a lot of stuff in there. The FEA script has done me very well over the years by laying down the law. This is what's happened. This is no good. Now, what I really want to know is how can we work together to fix this?
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, that's great. Isabel Knight says, thank you. It's an endless topic. It certainly is. And Stephen Sue from, I think Stephen is in Melbourne. Well done and great to see you both, Mark and Kim.
Well, it's great to see me. I don't know about both, Kim.
Yeah, you're the star. Okay.
Thank you. Well, thank you for making it happen, and thank you, everybody. That's been terrific.
All right.
Thank you.